nice, but I'm not sure if it actually makes a difference. But I got to figure out how it works with YouTube to see if like the
Yeah.
transcription works better. But so this is episode 33 of This Old Deck. Pretty exciting stuff there. Kevin, I'll have you introduce yourself and just give me a little bit of Magic background, like when you started, what you kind of play now, all that stuff.
Yeah. So I am Kevin Johnson, 31. I started Magic in 7th edition when I received one of those little core set theme packs
Yes.
with that I played with my brother, and we had 2 decks, and I was pretty sure that the elves were overpowered,
Okay.
and because Elvish Well-Wisher, I couldn't beat it. I couldn't kill it. I couldn't swing past it. It was unbeatable. Then I didn't play again until Time Spiral when I got very seriously into it and did a lot of drafting at a local game shop. Got pretty good at that. Played that for a few years, and then I've been on and off since then, playing mostly Commander. A lot of that has been online because I didn't do as much after game shops after I stopped drafting, so a lot of it's been like cockatrice stuff online.
Hmm.
I tried Arena for a bit, didn't really. The fun of Magic is playing with human beings.
I agree.
Mostly at this point, human beings that I know pretty well because Magic is like an insanely flexible game,
Yeah.
and you have absolutely enough room to shoot yourself with unfun scenarios, and everyone's definition of unfun is different. But if you just show up to some random place and say, I'm playing Commander, I'm playing Modern, even that, unless you're at like a relatively high level of optimization, there's a huge amount of variety in how people like experiencing the game. So mostly I play Magic with friends of mine.
Yeah, dude, I think we're on the same page. Like, really, Magic is similar to Dungeons and Dragons, right? It's just a gaming system. Like
Mhm.
you could inherently play Magic without ever buying a card because it's everything's online, right? Like, people
Oh
buy
yeah.
the cards because we give it legitimacy, like the United States dollar. That's a different story. But like the whole point is like you could just it's just a game system,
Yep.
which I completely agree with. Now, why I'm having this conversation with you and what we're going to get into is because we have a mutual friend, Claudia, and how do you know her by chance? I guess.
We work together at a company
Oh,
called Hippocrates.
there it
Got to
is.
know each
Okay,
other there. Yeah.
that's the only part I was missing. I figured you guys knew each other from work, but I just wasn't 100% sure.
Yep.
And then you attended your first old school event, which was Ragnarok, correct?
Yes. Quite recently. Yes.
And then give me you did a bunch of testing for the Friday night event, which was Twilight of the Gods, which leads me to believe that you're a pretty good Magic player because you showed me the combo, which I'll let you walk into. But do you want to talk anything at all about the testing process you and Claudia did? Because you guys really
Yeah.
hammered out like you found a lot of errors in the original. Like I think there's probably been 16 revisions as I looked at it, but like you guys did a lot of the heavy lifting. So I'd like to
Yeah.
just tell me about it.
So how did this even happen? Last year, there was an old school event that Claudia went to, which was the Twin Peaks themed.
Mhm.
I was not involved with the creation of that event, but I had a lot of testing with Claudia for just decks based on the rule set, and I love that. I play a lot of D&D. I love these like custom game modes, and so we did a lot of testing for that for fun, and that went pretty well. So this year, I was invited to help like do the early beta testing for the rule set, and that's very interesting because Ragnarok obviously is there are a lot of modifications. There are a lot of rules in Ragnarok, and so it is very very different from normal old school. So when we first I remember our first game, she showed me the rules, I started testing it, and she was going to play a regular game of Magic, and I locked the game down on turn 2, and we're like, okay, well I guess we're changing those rules because like Freya could auto ramp you, and so you had guaranteed Stone Rain on turn 2 every game, like you couldn't miss. And that was before we have the Heimdall and stuff. So at the time, I think that was one of the best things you could do. So very, very quickly, we're like, oh, these favors are the key. Like the favors are the key because they are guaranteed a stupidly large number of extra cards in hand from the start of the game. Right? You talk about Commander, where you have that changes your hand size field because you've got 8 cards in hand. Well, Ragnarok, you start with 11 things you can do on turn 1, and then you got the rank 2 favors as well, all of which is guaranteed access. So we spent a lot of time playing around with that. There were a lot of revisions. We did
Oh yeah.
Hell Colossus was big for a while. Then we changed the rules. That didn't work as well. We did, and then I think that ended up coming back, but it was too slow by the time we got to the event. LD was big for a while. We try to do some really fun stuff. Like Rubinia is really cute because she can steal gods. It doesn't matter. It's way too slow. Everything was around these like first couple turns with the favors active.
Yeah. And I cannot. It's like hard to explain without actually showing people the Discord channel.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But like,
'cause people-
yeah.
yeah.
But I would like wake up and there'd be like like 100, like a legitimate 100 messages, and I'd be like, all right, the rules have changed again. And that happened like 16, 17 days in a row. It was impressive.
I love this kind of testing. I think we spent I don't know, maybe 20, 30 hours combined on that, and like before the rule set got locked down. It was a great time. Do you want me to explain how Ragnarok works, or does the audience of this know Ragnarok?
They would probably know, okay. And it's not even really worth explaining.
Okay.
So that was Friday, and you did fairly well. We played something similar because you basically, Claudia showed me your deck design, and I just played what I had without the. Did you play the fast bonds?
I played. I think. Wait, what? Did I play Fast Bond? No, I didn't play Fast Bond. I didn't play.
We were both on combo, but Freyr combo.
I wasn't Heimdall though. Yeah. Heimdall was Fast Bond. And that's so funny story about the two winningest decks, right? The two best decks were clearly Heimdall. Heimdall wins.
Yep.
And Freyr untap shenanigans. Neither of those decks existed until the final round of changes. Like Heimdall was one of the last changes, and I think Freyr was like maybe the last change.
Yep.
Before that last thing, Freyr was tap, sack, make 2 tokens, and obviously no combo there. Heimdall was a relatively late change. I understand Skullclamp better now, because these last minute changes that you don't see you don't look at the format with fresh eyes when you see these changes and understand what those imply.
Yeah, and then I agree, because like I remember the Heimdall being a late change.
Yeah.
And then I just was like, all right, like I think I played against Quinn and he had that going, he had the wins going. I was like, I'm just gonna play this, but without the fast bonds, so I just didn't own fast bonds. But the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So how did you pick your deck for Saturday? Had you played any old school previous to Saturday, like just a little bit of testing with Claudia or anything like that?
Yeah, I remember the first time Claudia sat me down, like, I want to try this format. It's called Old School. We sat down, she has all the cards. We played these like super low power decks with like Savannah Lions and Swift Sprite swinging past each other. And like, in retrospect, having done Saturday, very, very weak decks, but an interesting introduction. It is a weird format. I love having options, and Old School has relatively limited options. So when I was thinking about my deck for Saturday, a lot of it was, one, what cards do we have access to, right? We have a good amount of cards, but not all of them. I desperately wanted chains for Friday. We couldn't get that. But I like the feeling of the Freyr-Geddon because it's a very mind game heavy game, right? You have to know when to go for the Geddon, when you're swinging past. It's got a lot of outs, I feel like, against a lot of the field.
Did you say Freyr-Geddon, or you mean?
Yeah, sorry, Erhnam-Geddon. Yeah,
Erhnam-Geddon. Okay.
Got right.
I was like, yeah, but close.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the other reason is Erhnam-Geddon was very similar to a lot of the decks I was playing in our testing for a while, so we knew I liked the play style of it.
Yeah, I think Land Destruction in the early versions of Ragnarok, Land Destruction was very good. I agree with you on that. So I think because you could like turn like you said already, you could turn to a Stone Rain on somebody easy money.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to Saturday. Sorry.
No, yeah, and so like we knew we had the cards for that. Like Erhnam-Geddon's a pretty like standard stuff. So it was just I basically pulled together the cards Friday night after we we disassembled everyone's Ragnaroks, or either Friday night or Saturday morning. We disassembled all the Ragnaroks and figured out like what cards we have access to. I did some Googling. I love the old school deck list you can find. So I'm like, okay, well, some of these cards are better than I think they are. I'll trust the system. I liked tuning the sideboard. That was fun, but I did not expect to do well. I spent a huge amount of time preparing for Friday, right? And Saturday was like, I guess I'll play Magic. Like, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, 60 cards,
I used to be good
sideboard. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, the Ragnarok testing was helpful for Old School, not because the games weren't that similar, but understanding what everyone's outs are and what people are playing around and like what you're trying to mulligan for, because even old school is lower powered than Friday, but the restricted cards change so much about it. Like you can do really weird stuff when you've got access to I Lotus Counterspell, right? Yep. And so it's also easier to predict. One of the downsides to Commander is it's totally impossible to play around anything ever because the card pool is infinite.
It's huge. It's massive, right?
In old school, there's a finite list of cards your opponent can have that can ruin your day, and you can play around all of them. If you think about it and you're like, I'm not going to try to play around Wrath, it's just going to wipe me. I'm going to play around these cards. And it's much more of a tactical, solvable problem.
Absolutely.
And I like that a lot.
Interesting. How did you just play straight Urnham-Geddon? Did you play any power, like just an Emerald and a Pearl, or did you splash blue?
I did not have blue. It's been a while. I need to double check. I played a lot of power because we had that available. Yes, I played blue. I definitely had blue because I did a lot of counter spells and that was really helpful. Shoot, I should have looked up my deck list before that. I forget a lot of the details of the games.
Don't even worry about it. Nobody's even going to remember. How did you do on Saturday? Do you remember generally how you did?
I went 5-1. I only lost one match.
So that puts you. Then I can look up your deck list right now. But what place did you end up? Third place.
Yeah.
For your first old school tournament ever. Did you play like any type of competitive Magic before you started playing?
I was one of the guys in drafting, but I never played competitive constructed.
Like no modern, no standard, none of that good stuff.
No.
Gotcha. Interesting. So obviously a pretty good player. A lot of drafting must definitely help with that. Would you, now that you've played old school, right? Mm-hmm. How many old school cards have you bought, I guess? Have you bought any?
I still own precisely one old school card.
Oh
I bought one giant spider the day of the tournament to fill out the day of before a Friday to fill out my sacrifices for summoning Freyr.
Grant Castleton would be very happy that you bought a giant spider. If he's listening, he'll understand. Do you plan on coming to any more old school events? Like, is this something that you're gonna make part of your Magic realm, like in addition to your EDH?
It's a good question. I struggle to see myself really investing in the card pool.
Okay.
It's a lot of not even just the money, but the time to like manage and curate a collection starting from scratch is a lot. Like the games are interesting, but one of the things that makes them tactically solvable is that I think it's a small pool, right?
Yeah, it's like 936 cards, something like that.
Right. And so, once I've played around enough, like swords and counter spells and like, okay, you now have a Lotus, like I think the games are going to become samey a lot sooner than some of the other formats. And that doesn't make it bad necessarily. Like board games have a like entirely limited pool and they can be fun for a long time, but it's hard to imagine myself investing however many thousands of dollars in a game experience that's so limited. Like I'll only play it once a year. I know there's a community here that I could go like start, but there's a huge amount of inertia, I think, to getting started in old school. And I wasn't around for the start of it. Like I didn't play in 93, 94. I don't have as much of an emotional attachment to these cards as I think a lot of the players do. I started
that's why I asked you like how old you were before we started this cast, because I was curious. Like I knew that you were younger than I'm probably on the younger end of the quote unquote old school age group, and I was like, he's got to be younger than me. So that's why I had to ask that question.
Yeah. And I would love to keep coming back to these kinds of Ragnarok style events because I love made up formats. I love like I play a ton of D&D. Like I love these kinds of like, here is a new weird constraint that is an unsolved space. How do I optimize within these constraints? I love that. So I enjoyed myself and I like hanging out with Claudia. So I can easily imagine myself coming to more of these events. But I struggle to imagine myself really getting into old school for its own sake.
Interesting. Even if I told you that there always is a new format coming out that somebody like got a little bit high in their mom's basement and was like, what if we just did this?
Well, I mean, sure. And I can make a format too. Like it matters if there is enough of a player base to engage with it and enough humans that I know playing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going to go show up to some random Magic event, old school or modern or Commander or anything, and just play with random people because I don't know them. I don't know what makes them tick. I don't know how to maximize the fun of that experience. Um, Part of the fun of the Ragnarok style was going there with someone I knew, so I'd have someone to bounce off of, and I can use Claudia as a proxy for, well, I bet the other people are similar to this, and that was roughly true, and that's nice. So the fact that old school like formats exist anywhere, it's a tough sell.
Fair enough. Did you make any new friends at this old school event?
I met people that I would happily see again. I haven't been keeping in contact with much of them. I think the time zones are all over the place, but there are people that I can imagine getting to know better for sure.
Oh, awesome. Here's a maybe tough question. What do you think old school could do to improve its tournaments?
So allow proxies the first N times.
Ooh, this is contentious. Go ahead.
I know this is an outsider's perspective. There are people who are going to disagree with this, but you need to give people that free hit before you hook them. I work for me because I have friends like Claudia and Claudia's connections who lend me like however many thousands of dollars worth of cards.
So you're saying for somebody's first tournament, allow them to proxy power.
Yeah, and because here's the thing, I'm a deck builder.
All right. Yeah.
If like I could put together Urnham-Geddon, but I couldn't change it. I couldn't tweak it. I couldn't play with it in the way that I want to without having not just all of those specific cards, but a wide range of alternate options.
Mm-hmm.
So it reminds me of Hearthstone and why I bounced off of that, which is just it's very, very cheap to net deck and it's very, very expensive to be creative because the opportunity cost of trying something new is so high. And I
get you. Okay.
And maybe there's another way to do that, which is you say, okay, you know what, you always have to have real cards, but you lower the friction of swapping out cards. You say, well, look, I have this deck which has these counter spells. I want to try a black version, right? If I could trivially swap out all my blue cards and then have the equivalent value in black cards, that would be easier for me to play with. But all of my cards would still be real, and so I could think of it as this one time, like I put in however many thousands of dollars and I stopped thinking about the nitty gritty of the cards. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy these from Card Kingdom. I'm going to like order these online weeks before the tournament. Like there's so much fiddliness. That's what I'm talking about. Like it's not just the money. It's the whole process of managing a collection of exactly how many cards do I have? How many factories do I have? It's fiddly.
Well, you only need 0 factories. What you need is like at least 16 strip mines.
Right.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'll counterpoint. I agree that the power is expensive, no doubt. I still don't own any power. Well, I own a couple like CE pieces, but like no blue power. And I get that duels are expensive. I don't disagree with that statement. But what I think the difference is that once you make that, it's similar to Legacy, and it's similar to EDH. Is that once you make that big hit, it's all downhill from there because the rest of it's like pennies on the dollar. Because like you can get revised giant spiders, which I'm sure you didn't buy a revised one, but like you can get revised giant spiders for basically 10 cents, maybe even less. So that's my only counterpoint is that once you buy it, you're done. There's no, it's dissimilar. And what makes, I think, one of the better formats is that there's no additional cards unless you choose to like add a set, right? Like every old school tournament, generally speaking, is just old school on Saturday. Friday night's kind of like a spicy special event. But that Saturday, it's like the same card pool, and it has been for quote unquote years, right? Like that's my only counter is like EDH. I used to play a lot, and now I have 2.5 decks, and they're just there for like playing with friends. Like I would never walk into a store with them. That would get laughed out of. I would get laughed out.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's like, why do I play so much EDH? Like deck building is fun when you're doing it on Cockatrice, right? Oh, yeah. And I can play with my 4 friends who like we're all across the country and it doesn't matter. And so it's easy to manage that. It's and so maybe what I'm really saying, and this is maybe more true than anything I've said about old school specifically.
Sure.
Paper Magic is hard. Paper Magic fundamentally has this like maintenance cost and management and tracking your card set. And old school is, I think I agree with you that it's relatively easy. It doesn't cycle. There's a few big buy-in cards and the rest of them are cheap. And you can shuffle around your big cards between your decks. But I don't play Paper Magic.
Oh, that's
Maybe
right.
that's
You're
the
not a
thing.
paper player. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it is.
And
Was
so,
that
like,
the first time you played paper, and how long was Ragnarok?
certainly before COVID,
Ooh,
possibly. I think the only, like, I've been playing paper periodically with Claudia specifically. If
sure.
you, like, other than Claudia, I have to go back like a decade.
Wow. Impressive.
I wasn't sure I would understand how to untap. Like, it had been a while.
Well, I mean, that's just like what I mean by impressive is like you're telling me that you haven't played physical paper Magic in like years. We'll just say 2 years, just to be conservative with our estimation. And you go 5-1 on an old school tournament on a Saturday, and you also placed very well on Friday night after you were done testing it all the time. Like, that's, I mean, I'm just thoroughly impressed. That's what I was trying to get out of it.
Thank you. Yes. Magic is a fun game. I have a lot of affection for it. I think that I could be good at it if I really wanted to go for it. But that's,
Yeah, but
I
then
don't
you
know.
could also just make real money doing something else.
Yeah,
In the same
exactly.
amount of
Right.
time. I hear you. I hear you. Like you could literally play poker and like make more dollar per hour sitting at a 1-3 table. Yeah, I get you. What else do you want to? Is there anything else you want to talk about? We're getting close on our time limit, which I've arbitrarily set.
I think I hit a lot of the little stories I wanted to tell. I want to thank everyone involved with Ragnarok. I think it was an extremely welcoming space. No one had met me before, and everyone was super friendly, like understanding the signing people's cards randomly. It was a very, very friendly environment, and especially as, like I said, like my first big Magic event in however long, it was more friendly than any of the last ones I remember. Like, in terms of just going to a public space and meeting a bunch of new people all at once, fantastic crowd, top tier like people and event.
What was your favorite? Tell me your favorite moment from the weekend. It doesn't have to be like necessarily old school related, but it probably will, I'd assume, between Friday and Saturday.
I think I really, really enjoyed, more than anything, I enjoyed the matchup against Time Vault.
Oh, who's that dude? I should have looked this up. I played against him as well.
The guy
Keep
who won
talking.
Friday.
The guy who won on Friday. You mean Danny? Danny Freeman.
Danny. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. I didn't know if you played the guy on Saturday who was also playing a Time Vault deck. But
Okay.
Continue.
I really enjoyed Danny. I watched him win through Friday. Can't believe his luck. I hate that guy. He's great. I like Time Vault was one of my favorite decks. Just playing on Cockatrice. I really enjoy the depth of it and the mind games of it. And so, like, that matchup against Danny on Saturday, squeaking it out with some weird plays, I really, really enjoyed that. I think that was a great time, and Danny's a great guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that watching Danny play Time Vault or playing his decks is like is its own form of entertainment because he's not really playing against anybody but himself. Like,
Yeah.
we're on the same page. I think that wraps it up here. I thought I had one more. I like the idea. You have a really good point. If it's your first time at an event, you get the proxy. Just that first time. That first hit is free.
Yep.
Really want to think about that idea now. I wouldn't say groundbreaking, but man, I'm going to put that out there. I'm not going to give you credit. I'm going to take credit for it.
Yeah, absolutely do it.
All right, man. Anything else you want to say?
No, thank you very much. This has been fun.
Fantastic, dude. Let me sign this off and then we can talk about something else real quick.